How's everyone doing? Good? Good? Exciting? Great. So John handed me this note before I walked on stage and asked me to read it. So it says, you are all luminaries and truly at the top of your game, and my light is pale in comparison to that of this august panel. So just a round of applause for this amazing group of marketers that are on stage. You're going to share some time with us. Truly appreciate it. So with that, maybe just go around, just quick introductions, who you are, where you work, and most importantly, how did you get to where you are? Because I think that, and one thing in talking to a lot of content marketers, the journey of how they made it to where they are right now is wide and varied, and so I'd love to hear a little bit about that. So let's start with Angela.
Hi, nice to be here, nice to see everybody. Thank you for that fantastic introduction. My name is Angela Matusik. I work at HP. My title is so new it's still kind of wet, so I'm open to suggestions. Today I'm sort of calling it Head of Brand Content and Creative. Until about a month ago, I was the Head of Brand Journalism.
Which is a badass title.
Yeah, which I really like. Now I'm still doing brand journalism, but we've expanded it a little bit. I sit in the communications team at HP. And before this, I worked in media my whole life, and I was an editor and a digital leader at InStyle and People Magazine and something called iVillage, which was a big site that disappeared, which happens, and that's why now I work at a brand that won't disappear because it's been around for 80 years.
Awesome. John?
Hi, I'm John von Brachel. My title is Content Marketing Executive at Bank of America. My team manages the content marketing, editorial content marketing programming for consumer, our wealth businesses, and our enterprise programming. And before this, I was also in media, unorthodox, I guess, way to get into this role, but maybe more orthodox now, and we'll talk about that. So that's my past.
Yeah, for sure. Paige?
Yeah, I'm Paige Fadden, Director of Digital Strategy for Corporate Affairs at Walmart. Like Chad Mitchell before me, I started out in Washington in political communications and came to Walmart doing digital advocacy. I'm now working on developing digital strategy closely with the brand content team to kind of tell our story and manage reputation at Walmart.
Great, awesome. Well, thank you all for joining. I think that that's kind of an interesting point, that content it's really big, right? So I had a very kind of like fixed mindset when I first started working at Knotch when thinking about content marketing and thinking about a lot of being consumer-based marketing. And through the work that we've been doing with Walmart and others, it's really this much broader thing that when you look at the value of content, it's not just about how you're communicating with consumers, but it's influencers, it's policymakers, it's employees, it's investor relations. And so content is quite broad. I know you guys are all very creative people, and when you got into the business, you may not have been thinking about data as like your number one top priority, but I'm sure as you now kind of work at brands and are always kind of fighting for budget and for more things to do, that data is a really useful tool for you. So I'd love you just to talk a little bit about how you guys utilize data like within your organizations when you're thinking about content. And maybe start with Angela.
Sure. Well, Andrew, you know a little bit about this journey because we've been on it together. When I joined HP, one of the things that I noticed immediately was that we weren't measuring content, or they had no setup for how we were tracking our content. And we are still talking about new measurements and how we manage its effectiveness and make sure that it does connect to our bigger company goals and that there is ROI and it ladders up to our brand initiatives. But sometimes you just have to start with the basics. And so when I was in media, we looked at measurements constantly. I mean, we would have it live on a screen in our office, and we would be able to tell you at any given moment how many people were on our site, what they were clicking on, and so we could be really responsive and had a very deep connection to our audience. So in some ways, I think that's what data really helps you with. They help you have a connection with your audience, and ultimately the best content is being written for your audience, not for your boss and not for a corporate mission, but to the people that you want to have a benefit from the content. And so I think using Knotch and having other types of data which measure basics, like whether it's viewership, time spent on page, but then when you can get into sort of more effectiveness and sentimentality and how it might move perceptions of your brand is where it gets really valuable.
Yeah, for sure. And Paige, you deal with a very, very fast-paced environment where you're trying to publish very, very quickly, sometimes reactionary, sometimes proactively. Like, how do you guys think about data around content at Walmart, which is probably one of the biggest data-driven organizations on the face of the planet?
Yeah, definitely, and I think it's evolved a lot over time. When I started out, I was on the brand content team, and we used to say, we don't have a content problem, we have a distribution problem. And I think that was true, but I don't think we were really addressing the content problem as well. And I think that the one challenge is that we really needed to define our audiences and use those insights to tell our story. But I think we needed to ask, like, do people believe us? And like really following up and surveying. And I think we're being really honest about asking those questions. So, I mean, it's great to have partners that have tools like Knotch that we can gauge people in real time with favorability and message agreement, and then also using a number of other survey tools to really see how people are recalling our message. But I think that when we started out, it was we're not getting enough traffic or we're not getting enough clicks, but that only tells part of the story. And I think that believability and being transparent, and then making changes on the fly when you see your content isn't resonating with your desired audiences.
Yeah, for sure. And John, I think I saw you speak once before where you were saying about the scourge of the content marketer is the bounce rate, and how it's kind of like a very silly metric to be looking at when you're trying to figure out actually the performance around content. You also have a lot of different kind of parts of the organization that you serve. Talk a little bit about not only how you think about data within the organization, but also maybe just a little bit about how you're structured from a content center of excellence, because I think you guys are set up in a really unique way.
Yeah. Apropos to the bounce rate, I think it depends on how you're defining it, bounce and exit rates. But if you're a search engine and you're giving someone an answer, it's not bad that someone might leave your site if they've had a great experience with you. Like, you have to remember that the covenant that you have with your audience is based on what you're serving up, and the experiences after that. The data aspect in our world actually does revolve a little bit about how we're organized. I think I'm fortunate enough to be in a company where data matters, and we are very audience-focused as an organization, and we're getting better at that. We're continually working harder at that. So what I needed to do was make sure that the routines that our teams were using to build content for those audiences included data up front and at the end. So it was always at the end. There would always be a wrap-up meeting, and data would be like, oh, okay, I get that. But now it's really up front in all of our meetings. It informs all of our channel delivery planning, which is weekly. It informs all of our program and campaign management, back and front end. And I really love that my team has embraced it so much. It's in all of our, as we fill out these channel plans, it's everywhere. The one thing that keeps me up at night, though, is what the teams are doing within the bank to connect with people on a personalized level. Mm-hmm. And that ability to kind of create MTA experiences that are connecting with people in real time. Is my team's content actually ready for that rapid delivery, and is the experience going to be high quality? And that's where I focus. We have some experts like Lou who are building out strong MTA experiences where we will personalize across all devices in a sequenced way, making sure that content's ready for them, and having a meaningful experience is what I care about. My team is organized as a vertical, nimble organization. So it's vertical in so much that I've got a center. I've got a group of people who are like-minded editorial experts, and I've got relationship managers who are connected to all the businesses that we serve. So it's a nimble organization. We're one-on-one, but we go deep with my organization to help develop and create assets with our partners or within my own team. So other content creators like media companies, content creators that are full-time content creators like Meredith Corp. We work with them, with my team to deliver. So that's how we're organized.
Got it. And Paige, I know you guys are again, kind of unique with your use of content because you do have some very distinct audiences, whether it's going and doing paid partnerships with different publisher partners to influence policymakers and people kind of like within the Beltway and whatnot, to investor relations, employee communications, and just overall your news site, and the fact that you can repurpose some of that content across the board, and then there's some that's kind of unique. Can you just talk a little bit to the kind of the strategy of how you think about, okay, what content can plug and play across the board, and where you have to kind of more drill down and become personalized, not necessarily to the individual, like what John's trying to do, but almost more personalized to an audience, especially like employee comms, where you've got 2.2 million, readers, more or less.
No, absolutely, and I think that we do. We have multiple audiences, and we used to always say, like, our job in corporate affairs is to reach the elite audience, and I don't even know what that even means anymore. And I think, like, to tell our full story, we had to be holistic, and we do need to reach to the elite audience, but there's no one size fits all to the elite audience, because what does that even mean? So finding out, who we're trying to reach amongst our political elites and our business elites and our tech elites, and then now this new audience, the ESG investor, but we can't do that without the help of the media and our associates. When you have 1.4 million associates in just the United States, we have to find ways to tell that same story. So really taking one story and telling it across multiple platforms, but also measuring. So we do tend to use a mix of paid and earned strategies across multiple channels and measuring them. So telling our associate story on our One Walmart intranet, using our corporate website to reach the media, as well as using a number of paid strategies to reach our designed elite audiences. And it's really challenging because I think that one of the things that we've learned is that for each of those audiences that we need to tell our stories a little bit differently. And even amongst our elite audiences, what resonates with the business elites is going to be very different from the tech elites. And then this new ESG investor audience, like that's a whole new wild
What's
wild
ESG
west.
investing for those who don't know, like myself?
Environmental social governance.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it's a brand new environment, and it's that we're having to test and learn content all the time. And I think one of the things that's been really eye-opening is that when you think you have your story right and it comes back that you're actually decreasing favorability, it's really hard to make that change. And I think one of the things that we've had to learn is to really be open and flexible and changing how we tell our stories to different audiences.
Yep, for sure. And Angela, I mean, you've created some really beautiful content over the past, I would say a few months, but for a long time. The Garage, which is HP's content hub, is a really great place to see these amazing stories. Like, how do you think about that storytelling that you're doing there, how that relates to the customers that you're trying to reach, and then ultimately, like, what is being judged there internally? Like, what are the goals that you're trying to hit with that content besides just making really amazing stories?
Well, I honestly think what Paige was saying is very relevant for all of us because we create content that we do push out. We like to think of it, it's like, the beginning of a long relationship with a reader or an audience, a consumer. So maybe to get them in and think about HP in a different way as our point of differentiation. We talk about our innovation, some of our brand core values, about making life better through technology, table stakes. Mm-hmm. But in addition to that, giving the people of HP, our employees, my colleagues, there's 50,000 of us, not as big as Walmart, but
it's pretty
50,000 still, it's a small city. And they're hungry for great stories about the brand, things that make the relevancy of what we're doing crystal clear, that they can feel proud. So it's super valuable, and we do distribute it externally and internally, and there are challenges within that as well. And we make sure that we have ways of making it available, and that's something that's so fun as a creator, because you're not just making an article that goes through this one, platform, but you might think, well, how do we then take this article and turn it into a panel that might be for our sales leaders? How do we take this 20-minute documentary film about the importance of printed photography and create a 1-minute powerful keynote video that we can give to our new CEO to show at his kickoff meeting. And so when you create brand content that speaks to this bigger purpose of who you are, what's your company's personality, I think that's what we're sort of playing in, and that's what we think about inside and externally as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting. David in his opening was talking about this idea of, can we create content and then license that and actually make money off of it? And not all brands can do that, and maybe you can do that from time to time.
We're trying to. Well, I wouldn't say that we're not taking advertising in, but we currently are working to get our documentary on different platforms, which I just think is just kind of mind blowing. I mean, the finance team is like, what? How do we handle this? Because I'm like, we might be making some money from iTunes if people decide to download our film, History of Memory. You can look for it.
It's a good plug.
But and it's not going to be a significant revenue, but just the fact that we can crack open that door and give it a possibility, I think opens up minds and perhaps will give us bigger runway for more deeper conversations along these lines when you can think about how content is being distributed, going to the platform. So taking a film that's available on social media, we push it out in many different forms, but then we're going to where people really want to be entertained and inspired, which is on the digital streaming platforms themselves.
Yeah, that's great. And you also have the additional legs of being able to take content and repurpose it for things like your CEO's kickoff and those types of things. I think there's a lot of intrinsic value around that as well. But the idea that you can also license it is great. We actually had someone come to us the other day and wanted to sponsor our newsletter, our company newsletter, which was kind of mind-blowing. So if there's anyone else out there who's looking for a great sponsorship opportunity, we'll put together a nice little rate card for you. John, talk a little bit about, you've been doing a lot of really interesting work lately, and would love to learn about kind of what are the things that you're passionate about the most right now, and ultimately, how did you get that sold in? Because I think that that's the other thing within content is that there's a lot of passion that can go around and things that you're just intrinsically know as a marketer. You're like, this is going to be good. It is, my gut tells me this. But then you need to go ask Lou or whoever it might be to be like, hey, can I have X, Y, Z, funds to execute this? Would love to learn just about something that you're passionate about right now and kind of what was the process to get there?
Yeah, and I think Kristen actually talked about it earlier, and I think that's the kind of audience that we should all expect to be in front of often. I think that's my job, which is to talk to people about the value and to help people understand that we're learning in this world. We continue to learn. So having the opportunity to deliver against a campaign and determine what kind of relationships we can build with our content experiences, you really have to be in front of people and defend it, and you have to go back to them, because everyone has a good idea. And a lot of these marketing leaders that I support, they come back and they're tough, but all of their questions are right on. And I'll go back to them and say, I think you're right. I think we can do it this way. So there's a persistence, and I do that for my teams who have these amazing ideas on how to elevate the relationship with our customers and to build new ones with prospects. We, for example, are really interested in connecting with audiences in authentic ways. We realize that some of the best ways to do that. One of our programs, for example, is called Better Money Habits. You might
Another good plug. Write that down. Make sure you check it out.
So Better Money Habits is, basically financial education. We partner with Sal Khan and the Khan Academy, and we do a lot with that. But it's really important that we have these bridge connections with the audiences that we think might use that. So let's say an emerging mass affluent audience or a just starting out audience. We'll work with BuzzFeed, and they'll help us connect with that audience in an authentic way. We created this Camp Better Money Habits last year just to help elevate that by bringing 50 kids who made less than $50,000 a year for a long weekend. We gave them all sorts of tutorials about better money habits and let them speak for the brand. And while my team was down there, we just captured all these really great videos of these kids that have really kind of informed our experiences for better money habits. The other thing for us, I think, is just recently we realized that more and more of our audiences are connecting to us via voice and audio. We have Erica, which is our audio voice interaction for the bank. But we're also seeing a lot more people on podcast channels. So we launched 3 podcasts last Monday related to each of the audiences that we're connecting to, institutional, individual, enterprise, influencers, if you will. And I think what's really important to that was, why are we doing three? Why are we doing three at the same time? So I had to go back to leadership teams and say, we have a really smart approach here. This is the right thing for our customers. We want to continue to connect with them with really interesting storytelling. They will build stronger relationships with us. And here's the data behind it. And I think the data, again, you talked about data. It's not just better for us, but it's better for us as we're working with our leadership teams to make them smarter about the data and the results, and give that to them. Everything I do is really for the leadership team to be smarter and to make hopefully better decisions about marketing, and maybe do more content marketing.
John, can I
work.
ask you a question?
Yeah. Yes.
Always a journalist.
I know, just get the mic in his face.
Those
and
podcasts,
answers.
I think I've actually been a targeted ad person for these podcasts. Is it one of them include Ken Burns, and it's on the front page of the Times app?
Isn't that something? Yeah, no, I'm really proud of that one. That's called That Made All the Difference. And it's the brand campaign, and apropos to Rob's question to his panel earlier, which was, how do you make sure that you're connecting advertising messaging, content messaging, and corporate comms messaging? Our brand campaign is, what would you like the power to do, right? We're asking people, what would you like the power to do? So one way to express that was to develop something called That Made All the Difference, which shows people who are confronted with an impasse that actually, through that impasse, it changed their lives and the lives of others. So yeah, that's one of our podcasts. It's on the New York Times. You'll see it there. And thank you, by the way, for the plug.
All these will be sent out in an email after the event, so be sure to click on the links.
Visit the garage, HP's garage.
From the Walmart perspective and more on the corporate comms side, I know that a lot of it, like you said, is like quick kind of reaction. We want to get things, but then there's also these longer term plans where you're doing these longer term partnerships. Like, how do you decide around what the themes are around those partnerships? How often do you get very close on something and then all of a sudden it gets derailed by something that's happening in the news? Like, talk through, you're like, oh God. Talk us through a little bit of kind of that process. And similarly, like, is there anything that you're doing right now, maybe on the more on the kind of the paid side, that you guys are really proud of as a kind of as something that you're leaning into?
Yeah, you know, the paid strategy that we're working on, and I'm now running the paid strategy, is something very new to Walmart. And one of the things that we kept hearing all the time from the board and from our leadership is, we're not telling our story, we're not telling our story. And we are, but there was no way to prove to them that they were telling our story. So they're like, give us a little money, let us tell our story. And it's made all the difference, because it has allowed us, to define who we want to reach and find the partners to tell that story. And I think that our main focuses are always going to be telling the story of our associate benefits, the things available to our associates, how the Walmart job is changing, how the company is evolving. Sustainability, a huge priority for us, a lot of investment in telling that sustainability story. And so while we were pushing it out over and over again on our corporate channels, it just wasn't landing. And you can work with the media to tell the story, but to be able to
They always mess it up.
They always mess it up. Just kidding. No, but I mean, it's actually nice to have the new opportunity to say, I need to reach political elites to tell that Walmart has $1-a-day education. And so we went out and we've decided a year ago, we announced to all of our 1.5 million associates in the U.S. that you have the ability to earn a college degree for $1 a day. Tremendous story. We announced it a year ago, very little fanfare. So we just celebrated our 1-year anniversary. 9,000 associates are now pursuing their college degree, and it's a tremendous thing. And we went out with the story, and while it kind of hit, we really it wasn't resonating. And I think that what we needed to do was find avenues to tell the story through the lens of our associates participating in this. So we're using the New York Times. We just went out with a paid piece 2 weeks ago, where we follow the journey of 2 associates. And it really has led to a number of other content pieces going out, both on our earned channels, as well well as the media kind of picking it up, and it's just finding the right distribution channels to tell the story where it starts to resonate with the audiences that you're trying to reach.
Yeah, for sure. We're getting close on time here, so I want to kind of talk a little bit about the future of content marketing, as it were, and the future of content within organizations. As we saw the chart at the beginning, like investment is growing, and it's the greatest thing ever. I think that one thing that I've observed in talking to a lot of different brands is, brands are on different points of their content journey, as it were. But I think that one thing that everyone can agree on is that content is this amazing way to connect with a consumer in a very intimate way, right? We talk about this shift from display advertising, which can be, in a digital sense, super binary, right? It's an ad, you're trying to get someone to click on something, to content, which is really about the value exchange and can you provide utility, can you entertain, can you create those emotional connections, and how do those last with consumers? And I think that, what I am excited about for content marketing at least is this idea of how can the data being captured around those experiences be used in a whole host of other parts of the organization. We have one client who's talking about taking insights from content that they do to actually inform their TV commercial and the creative there, because it's like a giant focus group that they can tap into. And then there's other ways to kind of use data to kind of pump it back into other parts of the marketing stack and whatnot. What do you guys see, start with Angela, as far as the future of content within an organization, and kind of your perfect world of how does content really support and, to Kristen's point earlier, grow the business?
Yeah, I think that your points on data are spot on. We need better long-term measurement. Lots of product-driven companies are very short-term focused, quarter by quarter, month by month, campaign by campaign. I think this type of work, you really need to be able to look at a year-over-year lift. So I think that a standardized practice would benefit us all if we could think about that. And I do think that finding ways to connect with the consumer journey, and we've talked about this, how do you know when people are coming back? They may have a quick visit and leave, they bounce quickly, but then making sure that when that person comes back, what makes them return and what are they doing when they return to your brand, I think is super important. Yeah, I don't know. And I think the idea of continuing to create content, stories can come from many different places, and it's not something that has to be owned by a particular type of company. I think if a story is genuine and it really resonates with people emotionally, the audience doesn't care who funded it or where it came from.
Yeah.
But it has to have a bigger purpose, and you need to just define what that is.
Yeah. How about you, John? You've been on a mission to build this content center of excellence. Where do you want it to go? Where do you see it in a year, 2 year, 3 year?
I think about all of the pipes we talk about that people are creating, really smart people in media, connecting social, connecting live interactions, say with call centers, and understanding the role, as you were talking about, which was relatively flat, with our audiences between the desire for them to be educated, to learn, and to share from what they've learned, or to take an action to learn more about either a product or solution, which is critical, or more about the bank, the values of the bank, so that, for instance, they might choose us because the values really do matter. And I think when all of that comes together in my organization, what I care most about is that we're serving, no matter what format, length, style, innovation, non-innovation, that we're serving authentic experiences for those audiences, whether it's influencer or consumer. Data is already telling us that authentic matters, and you talked about really great story about a year ago. A story may not have resonated about employee education, and now it is. And understanding those points in time as your audiences evolve, to rethink some of the things that may not have worked in the past. So I think that's where we are. I think we're in a situation where I always tell my team, and I have members of my team here, I want you to share whatever you're doing with your family. If you feel good about that, if you're talking to your friends about what you're doing, we're winning, because you are believing in what you're doing, you're creating authentic content experiences, you're elevating your game. And I think no matter what, if my team does that, as technology changes interactions, we will be there, and we will be building relationships, and that's what we want to do at the bank.
Got it. And how about you, Paige? What's the future of the comm center at Walmart? Where do you want to go with it?
My focus right now, one of the things that's been really interesting to me, and I think Knotch has helped this, is really using data to better understand our associates. And we just started kind of really measuring ENPS favorability with our associates, and so how can we use that data to kind of open up better two-way communications so that we can communicate to our associates better. And I think data is giving us a completely new highway to do that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a lot of very big companies that create lots of content, have lots of employees, and if you can get them activated and being smart about what you're doing and kind of singing your, the same thing that you want them, or kind of that you're saying, there's a lot of benefit to that, and you get that network effect of your employees.
It's an incredible local market and national influencer audience for you. It's really impressive that you're focused there.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Well, I know we're right up on time, so thank you. Really enjoy the conversation. Thank you to everyone for listening. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.